Thank you. All right. Well, I usually keep these pretty casual anyway, and we're a nice intimate group today, so yeah, I will plan to keep it pretty casual. So yes, my name is Jessie. I am the Director of Humane Education and Community Engagement. And Eric is our manager of our cruelty investigation and rescue teams. The format of this is sort of, I'm just gonna do some presentation about human-wildlife conflicts that we see, common problems that we hear about, what to do about baby animals, and then we'll do a little myth busting at the end. And we'll finish up with a Q&A with Eric if you all do have any questions that didn't get answered, or if you just want a cool story, he usually has some of those. So, sorry, how many of you have been to HSHV before? No, okay. So, yeah, we're the Humane Society of Huron Valley, and we are the animal holding facility for Washtenaw County. So if we're mostly known for adoptions. We have pet animals up for adoption, mostly cats and dogs, but we really will take care of any type of pet animal that needs our help. A couple weeks ago we had a chinchilla, we've had reptiles, we've had birds, I believe we have a couple rats right now. So if they're a pet animal that need our help, they can come at the Humane Society and we'll try to find them a home. But also if you have pets of your own and they ever go lost or get missing, we are the place that those animals would get brought to in Washtenaw County. We also have a outpatient veterinary clinic that is available for anyone to use. You do not have to have adopted from us, and we're a low-cost clinic. Eric can talk a little bit more about our cruelty investigation and rescue team later, but basically they look into cases of possible animal abuse or neglect in our county and also respond to sick and injured wildlife calls 24/7. Is that still accurate? Okay, yes. We also do a lot of people-focused support because we think that we're better able to care for the animals in our community if people have the resources to do that. So one thing that we have is something called Bountiful Bowls, which is basically like a pet food pantry for people who may temporarily need some help feeding their animals. And then what I do is humane education, so teaching youth, talking to kids about animals and building empathy. So like I said, if you were over in the sort of north section of Ann Arbor, we're technically headed towards, we're in the little community of Dixboro. So, but we are open 7 days a week, only closed on like the major holidays. So we're open to the public anytime you want to come check us out. But we service, again, all of Washtenaw County. Okay, so to get this started, I always am just curious, are there any particular animals in your neighborhood that you are particularly curious about learning about today? Or was it just sort of in general?
Well, I'm originally from Montana. We don't have possums.
Oh.
I'm interested to learn more about them.
Interesting. Okay, cool. That's interesting. I thought possums were in the whole U.S. That is not the case. Okay. Well, look, I learned something today. Okay, excellent. Have you seen an opossum since?
Yeah, they're weird.
Yeah, they are weird. But I'm partial to them, but maybe I'm partial to weird animals. Yes, that is accurate. They are the only marsupial native to the United States, I believe. So they're cool that way. Okay, well, all of these are species that are pretty common around here. Hopefully, skunks and raccoons, you're not actually seeing that often, but they are definitely around. So we're going to start by talking about human-animal conflict. So I have a whole big definition of what is considered human-animal conflict, but more or less it's when, the behavior or presence of wildlife causes some sort of threat or problem for people, and that can lead to, again, problems or negative impacts on people, wildlife, or both. And you can see this definition comes from the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. So human-animal conflict is an international problem. This is something that is happening everywhere. I have heard of, I always feel bad because Africa is a very large continent, and I can't remember specifically what area, but about a village that was having trouble with elephants coming in and eating the crops that they had planted. I don't know if it's still an issue, but I know Berlin in Germany for a while had an issue with wild boars coming in. And a couple years ago, I know Toronto was having a raccoon issue, so it's everywhere. I'm personally glad we don't have to deal with wild boars, or at least I don't think that's a frequent call for us. Okay. But human-animal conflict does still exist around here. The most common things we hear about people being frustrated by is denning, so animals temporarily living in houses, under decks, porches. Usually it's a temporary situation, but it can be a frustrating one. Damage to gardens and yards. This is mostly rabbits and deer that people get frustrated by. And then encounters with pet animals. So the things we hear about most with those are skunks, right? If anyone's ever had their dog get skunked, it's no fun. And then we often hear about people being concerned about coyotes being in their neighborhood, right? And potential harm that they could do to their cats or small dogs. So let's talk a little bit about what to do about these problems. So prevention is going to be the best route, right? Sealing off holes and openings into your home or under decks and porches. Granted, that's sometimes easier said than done because some animals can get into some pretty tiny places, so you sometimes have to do a pretty thorough inspection. But yeah, if you know that the lattice underneath your deck or something has an opening, that's something you could easily seal off and hopefully prevent some problems from occurring. Don't leave your garbage or food unsecured outdoors. So most of the time, if animals are hanging around our yards or our houses, they're looking for a meal. And if we make it easy for them, they're likely to hang out for a little while. Yes, securing garbage. If you are a person who feeds birds or cats in the neighborhood, we recommend just putting that out at certain times of day and then bringing it back in or securing it. The animals that are eating it, that are supposed to be eating it, can get used to that schedule, and then hopefully you're not attracting any other animals. And then supervise animals when they are in the yard. I know that one's kind of a pain because, especially if you're a person who has a fenced yard, that's the nice thing about a fenced yard is, right, you can just let your animal out and then bring him back in later. But the thing with, I guess, first of all, with skunks is that they are usually giving warnings ahead of time. And unfortunately, our dogs just often aren't listening to those warnings. But if you are out there and can sort of, again, prevent that interaction from occurring, that's great. And for the most part, coyotes don't want anything to do with people. So if you do have concerns about that, if you are outside supervising your animal, they're unlikely to cause you problems. Putting fencing around gardens and other plants that you want protected. That is obviously one solution. Granted, some animals are very good at figuring out their way around those things, but you can get some good fencing, even maybe go underneath a little bit. Or what you can do is plant smart. So there are some plants that most wildlife don't like. So in general, wildlife tend to avoid tough, super fibrous plants or anything that's super strongly scented. And so, for example, I know deer don't tend to like daffodils, peonies, or bleeding hearts. Rabbits don't like irises and bee balm, typically. Maybe there's outliers here and there. And there are actually a fair amount of resources on this these days. And even, I have a garden, I'm not great at it, but I attempt. And a lot of plants now will often be labeled as deer resistant, things like that. And there's quite a bit of, if you just Google, deer resistant gardens or plants, there's a pretty good amount of resources out there about things you can plant. Okay, so what if preventative measures don't work, or it's too late, they're already there? So mild deterrents are one way you could go. Just, again, animals are looking for the easiest route. So if there's a nice place where they can live and find food, great. So just make it less appealing or less hospitable, I guess. So you can do things like put bright lights or censored lights out there. You can play music or even just really the radio. Most animals are going to avoid places where there's a lot of human noises. You can also use some repellents. Pepper-based things tend to work well. One thing to keep in mind if you are going to be patching areas up, we really don't recommend doing that in the spring and early summer because that is when most animals are having babies. So if they are in your attic or under your porch and you're like, okay, I saw the raccoon or squirrel or whatever leave, that's great. They very well may have babies in there that you don't want to shut into that space for a couple of reasons. Unfortunately, they probably won't survive if you do that. But also, moms in general really want to get to their babies. So they may very well do some damage to your house trying to get to them. Eric and I saw a video a couple years ago now, I guess, but there was a raccoon that had been going down like the chimney in someone's house, and they ended up, again, they did what they thought was right. They waited for the mom to leave, and then they sealed it up, like the top of the chimney, and then they put a camera up there, and the mom raccoon came back and like scratched all of the like wood off and the thing because she wanted to get to her babies. So I don't recommend doing this task in the spring or early summer. Now is probably a good time. There aren't so many babies being had in the once it starts to get late fall, winter. Yes, Eric says knock on wood because he is looking forward to having a slightly slower season. His team is incredibly busy all spring and summer and really into the fall, like September, October are still pretty busy. One thing that we do not recommend is ever using poison for a couple reasons. One, it's not the most humane way to get rid of an animal. It can be a rather unpleasant death. Number two, you do not know what animal is going to get to that poison, right? Your intended target might not eat that poison. It might be the neighborhood cat or something else. Or maybe it is, the squirrel you were trying to get rid of, but then that squirrel dies and another animal eats it. Now that poison has been passed along to them. We see that happen with birds sometimes when they, especially like birds of prey, when they'll eat an animal that maybe had been poisoned and then there's another dead animal. So we do not recommend poison. Again, just make the area unappealing and hopefully they'll make the choice to move along on their own. And then sometimes coexistence is sometimes hard, but with a lot of animals, they really are only going to temporarily be taking up your space. Most of them are going to move along, especially after they've had their babies. They usually move along, find somewhere else. So I know it's kind of hard if you have like a family of skunks living in your yard and you're like, I really don't want to coexist with them, but they are a species that once the babies are grown, they're usually out of there. All right, community cats are not, they're sort of this weird gray area where they're not really wildlife, but they're also not really pets, so I sort of cover them in this just in case. Have you all heard of feral cats or community cats before? Okay. So these are unowned cats. They look just like your domestic house cats, but they are not socialized with people. Typically, if you see a cat like this, they're going to turn the other direction. They don't usually want anything to do with us. They usually live in small colonies outdoors, and they usually take care of themselves, right? They feed themselves. They find safe shelter. They usually don't need us. Sometimes well-intentioned people will trap these cats and bring them in and say, here, adopt them out. But they really don't want that. That's not a happy life for them. So, but what we can do is we have a pretty robust trap, neuter, return program. If you haven't ever heard of TNR before, what we do is we use these live traps. We just usually put some like stinky food back there. The cats go in and then the door shuts behind them so no one gets hurt. We bring them in, we sedate them obviously, we spay or neuter them, give them their vaccines, and we tip their ear. So it's a little hard to tell, but if you can look over there, the one ear has the very tip cut off, which I know sounds a little barbaric, but they are sedated when we do that. But that is just, again, because feral cats usually don't want us to interact with them. This is how we just have a visual knowledge that they have already been spayed or neutered, because they're probably not going to let us, like go pick them up and check it out. So, so we do that, and so if you ever see a cat with a tipped ear, you know that they've already been fixed, and you could just leave them to their lives. So with this program, our hope is right that they get to just live their happy feral cat lives, but they're not creating more and more and more feral cats. And yeah, if you have any more questions about that, Eric also, I guess, leads that department now, so he could answer those two. All right, I'm moving along to baby animals. So again, not so much a common problem for us this time of year, but in the spring, Eric and his whole team are incredibly busy because we get a lot of calls from people who are concerned about baby animals that have potentially been orphaned, right? They're like, I found a baby bunny, I found a baby squirrel, I found a fawn. What do I do? So, in general, please always feel that you can call us. We are there for you, but we always want you to make sure that an animal is truly orphaned before removing them from where you found them. We work with a really great team of wildlife rehabbers who are trained by the DNR, and they're really good at what they do, but they just really can't ever replicate what the mother can do. So, so we don't want to take them to a rehabber unless absolutely necessary. We also don't recommend that you offer food or water to the animal unless you have consulted a wildlife rehabber or us, and we have instructed you to do that. In particular, a thing that a lot of people do is offer milk, cow's milk, to babies, which is understandable. If they're mammals, they do drink milk, but cow's milk isn't good for other animals, unless you find an orphaned calf, I guess. Don't give them cow's milk because that can upset their stomach. So no milk for them. How can you know if a baby animal needs help? So if they're just out there on their own, that alone usually isn't a reason to assume that they're orphaned. But if they are persistently crying or vocalizing, that's a sign that they are maybe in distress and need some help. If they're shivering, right? And then if they just seem generally like unkempt, right? So if there's feces on them, or if there are maggots or other insects crawling on them, that's something the mom usually does, right? Is keep their babies clean and healthy. So if they have those things on them, that means that mom probably hasn't been around in a little while. If the animal is lying on their side, that's usually an indication that maybe something's going on with them. And if they are approaching people, so most wild animals instinctually stay away from people. So if they are coming up to you, that's not normal behaviors. Something is up. They probably need some help. And then I guess, of course, if you can see, visibly that there is a dead parent nearby and they are alone, then yes, they probably need some help. If you are unsure, you're just like, I don't really know, that is our number. Like I said, we have someone on call 24/7. So even the holidays, we'll be there on Thanksgiving. We'll be there all the days. So give us a call and we can give advice and help out. All right, birds are a little bit tricky. And again, this time of year, we shouldn't really be seeing any, but there's sort of 3 different stages until they become adults. If you see a hatchling on the ground, this is really, they're named because they were recently hatched, right? They are going to have almost no feathers on them. They'll look like a little, naked chicken. So if you see them on the ground, they are not supposed to be on the ground. They should be in a nest. So that is that is a situation where you should give us a call. We also work closely with the Bird Center of Michigan, and they also can give really great advice. They're a really good resource we have. Nestlings also shouldn't be out of the nest. So hatchling nestlings should be up in a nest. These ones are going to be a little bit smaller, but they will have some feathers, but they'll be small. Those ones also, sometimes they just get displaced, if there's been like a lot of wind, maybe if another animal sort of got into the nest and they're on the ground, they probably need some assistance. This is where it gets tricky though, because fledglings are usually fully feathered, and they look just sort of like a slightly smaller version of the adult. They are supposed to be on the ground. They're figuring their way out in the world, right? So they are usually, mom or dad is nearby keeping an eye on them. But yeah, they do not need to be in the nest. They are perfectly fine on the ground. All right, moving along to myths. All right, nocturnal animals. If they are seen out during the day, they must be sick. That is not true, or at least not necessarily, right? If the only thing you're seeing is like a raccoon or a skunk or a possum out during the day and they're otherwise behaving normally, it's just that it's daylight, not a cause for concern. Sometimes nocturnal animals do go out in the daytime to forage or find a new location. So if that's the only concern, they're fine. You don't have to worry about them. If they are acting, again, if they're going up to people or if they're vocalizing a lot or wobbling or like appearing ill, then maybe you need to be concerned. But again, just being out during the day is not a problem. Okay, if a wild animal does appear sick, they must have rabies. Probably not. Rabies can affect any mammal, and it obviously does happen, but it is not super common in Washtenaw County. If you see a sick animal, mammal in particular, around here, you're most likely probably seeing distemper, which is a concern because that is a contagious disease, but the good news is people can't get distemper, and we can get rabies. So at least from our selfish standpoint, distemper is less scary. But they do kind of look similar, right? So animals that have distemper, they sort of appear like drunk a lot of times, like they sort of like wobble, fall over, stumble. But yes, if you do see an animal having symptoms like that, you obviously probably shouldn't approach them, whether it's rabies or not. But give us a call because we may be able to help. But you can feel comforted that the chances that it's rabies is pretty slim. I will say I haven't done recent stats, but the last time I looked this up, so last year, in Washtenaw County, we've only had bats and skunks test positive for rabies in the past 10 years, and a horse, one horse that was bitten by a bat, yes. So again, it can happen, but it's not like large numbers of rabies that we're seeing in this county. Okay, so back to the bird thing. how many of you heard growing up that if you touch a baby bird, they will get abandoned? Yes, me too. That's not true. I think there's probably a good reason that like myth started, because you probably shouldn't just go up picking baby birds or go around picking up baby birds, but they're not going to be abandoned if you do so. Actually, most like songbirds don't really have a good sense of smell, so they're probably not going to pick up on your scent regardless. And as I was mentioning earlier, most moms want to get to their babies. They don't care if a person has touched them. So yeah, don't go around just picking up baby animals, because there's other concerns, but being abandoned by their parent is not one of the concerns. All right, opossums are vicious and scary. So I had a coworker once, she doesn't work there anymore, but she really didn't care for opossums. She thought that they were weird and not cute. I really like them, but opossums are weird looking, I will grant that, but they are generally pretty harmless. They aren't really like predators, and like they're scavengers really more than anything. They're just going around looking for things to eat. They're generally not attacking or killing other animals. And I would think an opossum attack on a person is a rarity. So they're weird looking, but they're pretty harmless. And the nice thing about opossums is that they don't tend to carry rabies. They are a mammal, but for whatever reason, their body temperature it doesn't incubate rabies. So that's a cool thing. They also have been shown to be immune to some snake bites. Is that right, Eric? I've heard that. I don't know. Yes. And distemper. Okay, so less likely to be carrying diseases, which is great. Okay, the coyotes thing. I know you don't have the microphone, but have you gotten calls about coyotes recently? Okay, great. So I do understand the concern about coyotes. Like unlike opossums, they are a predator. They do hunt and kill other animals for food. However, it's fine. I don't know how many of you are on Nextdoor, but I swear there's like once a week there's a post like, I saw a coyote. Okay, they live here. And I know we've gotten calls like that before, like, there's a coyote around. Okay, yes, they do live here. And I do understand that people might be concerned for their companion animals. That's fair. I will say that, yes, coyotes, again, are predators. It's possible that they could hunt and kill a dog. It's just not super common, right? Coyotes are usually going to go after easier prey that like don't fight back. So they're going to go more for rabbits and things like that. Cats and dogs can usually put up a decent fight with their own teeth and claws. So I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying it's really not a common thing that we see around here. But again, if it is a concern for you, we just recommend, again, supervising your animal while they're outside. And yeah, that's also good for, again, birds of prey. Like larger birds of prey can swoop down sometimes and get smaller critters too. So staying outside is good. Skunks. Okay. Has anyone had the pleasure of having an animal skunked before? Mm-hmm. Yes, it is great. But sometimes what we hear is that skunks will spray at the slightest provocation. Not really. As I mentioned, skunks actually usually do give warnings before spraying. So they'll do things that they'll hiss, or sometimes they'll stomp a little bit before. Again, the problem is that most of the time, our dog and cat friends are not heeding those warnings. They're just like, oh, okay, this is a fun game. So while we can see that, although we don't really need the warnings, right? We see a skunk and we're like, okay, I'm going in the other direction. But no, skunks usually aren't going around looking for people to spray. That's not something they want to do. It's not their first line of defense. And actually the glands where they produce their scent can take up to 10 days to sort of like recharge. And that leaves them somewhat defenseless in the meantime. So they're really actually not eager to use it. And again, that's just another reason why it's ideal to supervise animals when they're out, especially at night, right, when skunks are more active, to make sure that you can see the skunk before your dog or cat does. All right. I can humanely get rid of wild animals on my property by trapping and relocating them. This is a tough one because I think I've done this. And when we had a woodchuck burrowing next to our house, I thought, okay, well, I will just trap them and I will take them down to the woods and I'll let them go. And I thought, I'm being a nice person. I'm not hurting this animal at all. I'm just finding the new territory. Unfortunately, a lot of times this doesn't really work. Most animals do have a relatively small home range. So if you're relocating them far from that home range, their ability to survive is going to be lessened for a couple of reasons. One, they don't know where the resources are in that area. And two, that area already probably has animals living in it, so then they have to have territory disputes, right? So unfortunately, the trapping and releasing far from where you found them isn't really a great solution, unfortunately. So again, the preventatives or the making an area inhospitable are better bets in those cases. All right. So the benefits of coexisting, we just talked about all the problems you might have, but unfortunately, whether we all have species I think that we like more than others, and that's fair, but whether you like them or not, they do all have a role to play in our ecosystems, right? Some animals like opossums and skunks actually do eat like grubs and things, insects that maybe are less desirable on your property, but even if you don't, again, particularly enjoy them, they have a role to play, right? And Eric, I'm going to steal your line, but Eric always says, nature hates a vacuum, right? So even if we were to be like, all right, I'm getting rid of all of the woodchucks, I'm getting rid of all of them, they're gone, another animal is just going to come in and take up that territory because it's not like it's just going to go, oh, okay, well, we just won't go there anymore, right? So one of the things is that coexisting kind of is our only option because, again, we all have a role to play and we there's no such thing as a vacuum. So, but you can just enjoy the beauty of nature in your own yard. All right, before I hand it over to Eric for Q&A, I will just do a quick plug for HSHV again. If you are at all interested in any sort of animal things, we always need volunteers. We have all types of volunteer things. You can walk dogs, you can comfort our cats. If you're a really nice person, you can come do the laundry. But yeah, there's all kinds of volunteering. We are a nonprofit organization, and most of our funding comes from donations. So if you're able to donate, that's great. Attend events. And then you can help educate others, right? If you learned anything here tonight, feel free to share that with others. We also do have an animal defenders group that you can join, and then we send you emails when there's maybe local animal issues or statewide animal issues going on, and promote coexistence. All right, so I will hand it over to Eric. So he is, like I said, the manager of our cruelty and rescue department. He has a bachelor's degree in fisheries and wildlife with a specialization in wildlife biology and management. And he has been working in the cruelty and rescue department for how many years now, Eric? 6 years. 6 years. So he has the educational background and the actual just practical feet on the ground background. So if you have questions, great. If you don't, ask him for a good story.
All right. Hello, again, like she said, my name is Eric, and any questions you have about wildlife in general or anything about the cruelty laws in the state, I'm happy to answer any questions you got.
I have a question.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
a coworker of mine recently had a situation where there was squirrels making a nest in his car engine. Like there was a bunch of damage, and like ended up digging around in there, and a bunch of walnuts fell out, like a ton of walnuts. How common is this sort of thing? Like, I thought it was interesting. I haven't
Like
heard of that.
universally, probably not very common. Pretty common to us because anyone who has a squirrel problem brings it to us, so it's not uncommon for us. But generally, it's pretty uncommon. What they're trying to do is get into any spot where they can find soft bits to make an enclosure to make a good nursery for their babies. So I know in my car once it was the cabin air filter. They got in there, ripped that to shreds, and just made a home in there.
That's exactly what happened to my
Yeah,
coworker.
that's very common. Was it red squirrels? Because it's always red squirrels.
I'm not sure the squirrel breed. I just know that there was a nest, there's an air filter problem, and there was a bunch of walnuts.
Yep, so that they're just, again, trying to make a home, especially if the car doesn't move a lot. It's kind of either a secondary car or kind of a car someone's like repairing. So generally in those situations, what we do is we come out and we open it, and it's just a mess in there. There's leaves and seeds. The mom will generally just book it because she's tough, but she's no match for 2 or 3 humans. And what we do is we kind of comb through it all. You get the babies out and put them in a shoebox, put something warm in there. If you have like a hot water bottle, a pad, something to keep them comfortable, and you take those babies like maybe 100 feet away under a tree, and you place them there. If you leave them right next to the car, which someone did after we got them out, the mom just went, oh, okay, and just put them right back in. So you get them under a tree about 100 feet away, preferably. Mom will hear the babies crying out. And like she said, there's nowhere, you don't ever want to be between a mom and her baby. I don't care what the species is. So she wants her baby. She'll hear them crying out. She'll go get them. She'll then hopefully start to associate the car with danger, and then she'll avoid it. You could move the car if you can, but that's kind of the best steps to remove baby squirrels from a car and have them relocate mostly on their own accord.
Okay, so it seems like in my coworker's situation that it would have probably been a squirrel trying to hunker down for the winter and make a nest. I would assume that squirrels don't typically have babies this time of year.
This time of year, no.
No, okay.
Winters are getting warmer, so knock on wood. But no, generally the end of baby season, we consider it first, second week of October. That's where there start to be, they're all at least mature juveniles who can be on their own. Usually, there are outliers. In that case, like she said, what you want to do is, you'll never know until you know, but the earlier you deal with it, the better. Now's kind of the perfect time because it's late enough, like you said, where there aren't any babies, but it's early enough before there's been a hard freeze. So they still have a time to get out, reassess, find a new home, make a new nest before it gets too cold. So now would be the good time to, get squirrels out of anywhere they shouldn't be.
Yeah, he's been trying to figure out like what to even do, like what's like an effective way to prevent them from getting back into the car, because it's not as easy to like seal up, different parts of your car necessarily.
Yeah, again, that's what's difficult. If you can get a car wrap, that tends to help sometimes. Moving it occasionally, so there's like the smell of like moving gears and oil and like human presence. The animals don't like human presence for the most part. They want to be away from us because we're pretty scary to them. So anything you can do to make the area uncomfortable for the animal. Automatic lights tend to help. Even having a radio on, playing just like talk radio, just something that indicates human activity tends to make the animal activity in the area go down.
I just got my oil. I have a similar situation. I just got my oil changed a couple weeks ago, and the guy was like, "Oh, there's evidence that something's been in here." Fortunately, it didn't prevent my car from working, but I don't know if this is verified. But he told me Irish Spring soap. He was like, "Put Irish Spring soap in there." I don't know. I haven't tried it, but
It's a couple of bucks, it might work.
yeah.
I was having this problem.
Oh.
Mhm.
Squirrels were eating the wires in my car.
Oh.
And the thing that made them stop was spraying the perimeter of my car with ammonia.
Oh.
I don't know. It
Interesting.
smelled like pee. They didn't want to go anymore. It worked for me.
Oh.
And you only did it once?
Yeah.
Okay. He's been trying to figure out what would actually get them to stay away for a while, so maybe I'll I'll mention try spraying ammonia or something.
I also put like ammonia soaked rags in the place where they were
Yeah,
in the car. Like I found where they were, got all their nuts out, and then put,
yeah.
you know,
That's also good for like if you find a raccoon in your attic or you find like a skunk den outside, you want them to go away on their own, you put either vinegar or ammonia soaked rags deep into the den and that kind of makes them go away on their own. I wouldn't spray the car with ammonia, I'd spray around.
well, like the
Okay.
tires.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I can just keep asking questions. I mean,
Uh,
Well, you're welcome
yeah,
to,
I'll
if you
keep-
don't
I'll-
feel any pressure.
I'll answer, I'll keep answering.
okay. So what's this animal defender thingy? What is
Yeah.
that?
I gotta be honest, no one's ever asked me about it, and I don't actually, I'm not directly with it, but yeah, it's basically, you just sort of get in our email group, so anytime there's like legislation coming up or like an issue locally, you just get an email about it and say, here's what you can do if you want to, and if you don't, just ignore the email. So that's really it, it's just sort of a communication, like an email chain.
Like an activist sort of like thing.
Exactly, yeah,
Okay.
it's sort of more on the advocacy side of things. Yeah, and then occasionally they do events, so they have advocacy events, I would say like twice a year.
Okay. And then my work actually gives us 40 hours of volunteer time. I'm a big cat person. I love cats.
Excellent.
So if I were to volunteer, like what are some of the things that I could do with the cats?
Yeah, so basically we have a position called cat comforter. So you literally just come in and pet the cats, or play with them. So, I don't know, that sounds like it'd be up your alley. We have those shifts every day, so.
40 hours of playing with cats?
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Pretty much, yeah. It's, I always consider that like a win-win, right? Like it's good for you, it's good for the cat. Like, yeah. To be a volunteer, you do have to go through you have to come to an orientation. It's just like I think it's an hour and a half, and we just sort of go over the shelter and things, and yeah, and you can be a volunteer and come in when it works for your schedule.
And this is not related to the talk necessarily, but you said you got your bachelor's in fisheries and wildlife.
Yep.
Was that over like in Michigan?
Is it Michigan State?
Okay, cool. In Montana, obviously, that's a big. The university that I went to there was a big conservation and forestry school. So
Yep.
I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, I'm from Ohio, so the nearest good school for anything ag-related would be Michigan State, and they have a really robust program. So I enjoyed my time there.
Awesome.
I thought it was a really good talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for coming. I will say I'm very mad at myself. We have a bunch of like nice brochures and like some stickers that I left at my desk. So I apologize, but yes, we have a lot of resources on our website too. If you
Yes, which please, if you
Yeah.
need anything, there's my email. Any questions, I'm happy to answer them or get them to the department who can answer them.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.